One of the things that I recognized over the weekend, or became more apparent to me, was again, I seem to always be coming back to the breath, which is interesting, um, and using the breath. And I think what's great about the breath, and um, especially when working with any resistance, especially when you were working with any resistance. It might be an internal resistance, or it might be resistance with your kids, grandchildren. It may be resistance with a partner, or a colleague. But testing it out on yourself with any internal resistance seems to be really neat. And what I mean by this is, oftentimes, uh, when we resist something, there's sort of like this mentalization that happens. Maybe there's an emotion that occurs from it, and then there's a real resistance, right? It's almost like we're coming up against a wall, and we feel like we're being pushed, right? Or there's internal resistance, not wanting to do something, or not wanting to open up, not wanting to, let's say, be more in tune with our emotions. It's sort of like we're resisting ourselves every day in terms of progress that we might be making emotionally, mentally, physically. Um, Even judgment, right? Of, "Oh, I'm not sure I can do that," or whatever it might be. And what I've noticed, and I'm going to kind of continue to dive with this, not only working with people, but also for myself, is that when I notice that resistance, oftentimes, it's sort of like, it's like when we're angry, it's like the hardest time to be mindful is when we're angry, or when we have like a splitting headache, right? It's like, I can't focus on any. It's like the headache is so powerful, it's like I can't do it, right? The anger has flipped our lid, and we can't, like, really, you don't really, like, it's very hard to be like, oh, let me pay attention to the present moment. But breathing is not like it's not like a mentalization of something. There's nothing that you need to pay attention to. It's not like you're like trying to focus, right? When you have a headache, how difficult is it to focus on something? When you're angry, it's like, what do you want to do? You're focusing on your anger. It's like the anger is the point of focus. And that might not be, for some, that might not be the best point of focus, because it might just fuel more anger and more fire and more distress. Where breathing, the thing about breathing is that it's not actually something that you need to think about. It's not something that we need to practice focusing on or concentrating on. We simply do it. And so it's like, even if we are angry, we can learn how to breathe differently. Even if we feel that internal resistance, we can learn how to breathe differently. It's sort of like a different mechanism of action that's present. It's like, okay, can I pay attention to the present moment, and can I pay attention to my anchor, and can I pay attention to this? No, right? I mean, haven't you all felt that sometimes? Like, I just throw it all away, right? And yet, right, without even needing to pay attention to it, you could be paying attention to your anger, or whatever it is that you want to be paying attention to at that time. But you can change how you're breathing. And in the knowledge of the physiology of the breath, it's kind of like we're tricking ourselves, like we're allowing our nervous system to help regulate us from the inside out, as opposed to consciously, let's say, by focusing on something different, or trying to reduce our anger or reduce our stress. And so how do we do that? Well, we breathe. That's it. And in breathing, we are able to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And in activating the parasympathetic nervous system, we feel as if we can resist less because we're more in a rested state. And so it's sort of like this way of like tricking ourselves. And I kind of find this to be quite beautiful, especially if you're like working with people who are resistant to something. Let's say you're talking to them about something that they might feel resistance to, or you want to do something with them that they might feel resistant to, and you just sort of start breathing. How about we take some breaths? Right? Maybe this happens with your kids or grandchildren if you have some, or friends. You're trying to get a point across, or you're having a discussion about something that might be gooey, right? That might not be the most pleasant thing to talk about, and you're noticing some resistance, and it's like, okay, let's just stop the discussion. Let's just take some deep breaths. Let's breathe in and out. Let's slow down the breath. Let's have fun, and let's extend the exhale. Right? If you're working with kids, maybe getting a straw and they breathe in through their nose and then they exhale through their mouth through a straw, or some of the other exercises we've done, right? Where you imagine like you're holding a hot cup of hot chocolate and it's just a little bit too warm to taste. And so therefore you have to cool it, right? So how would you breathe if you were to have to cool? Right, but you don't want the hot chocolate to spill out of the cup. So it's kind of a fun way of tricking ourselves and helping to relax and decrease that resistance. The other part of it is actually using the breath to bring in and cultivate joy and happiness. Actually cultivate joy and happiness. Now, we've done some of these exercises before in a completely different vein, right? We've talked about the negativity bias. We've talked about a number of different things. But one of the questions that comes up in some of the reading is even in our negativity bias, for instance, that we're paying attention to things that we need to help survive, right? And so when since we have this sort of survival instinct, what we tend to do is we tend to think about the things we don't have and not the things we do have. Well, in today's practice, what we're going to do is use the breath and try to, as best we can, imagine and pay attention to the things that we do have, and link it in with the breath. And so this question, which is a question that I would encourage you, even write it down, put it on your bathroom window or something like that, or some aspect of this question, and ask yourself every single day, what are the conditions that we have for happiness? What are the conditions that we have for happiness? What are the conditions that we have for happiness? Now just imagine, right? You go and you get a notebook. And maybe you do this practice after we're done today. And you ask yourself, what are the conditions that I have for happiness? And you list down everything that comes to mind. Everything. And then that's your practice. How long do you think it would take? How long do you think you'd be there writing down all the conditions that you have for happiness? And when we think about the conditions we have for happiness, okay, we're all unique. We're all individual. And so they might not be the same for all of us. In fact, they probably won't be. But whatever conditions you have, for instance, the condition of having eyes to see, having ears to hear, having mouth to taste, having a tongue to taste, right? Having a nose to smell, having senses on our fingers to touch, having the ability to move our shoulder or our elbow or our wrist, to be able to grab things, hold somebody's hand. Right? Those are just a few. Imagine, right, doing this practice after you were done, where you get a notebook and you list every single condition that is present in this moment that that contributes to some happiness, right? Like Susie was mentioning, she was in this field, right? What are the most people are thinking about, I don't know, being wealthy, having fame, whatever it might be. And here's Susie in this nature, hearing music, spending hours and experiencing euphoria. And the conditions that were present to allow that to happen, that we take for granted, right? For instance, if you can, right, you can sit, maybe you can stand, but even if you can only sit for 5 minutes, I can sit for 5 minutes. There's a condition for some happiness, right? I can drink water. There's a condition for some happiness. And so in today's practice, what we're going to do is we're kind of going to link the breath into conditions of happiness, and allow you, I'll give a few examples, but really what I'd like you to do is internally come out with your own, and you'll see kind of what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's start our practice. Okay, so let's take a moment to find a comfortable posture. To find a posture where we feel relaxed yet alert. And for this practice, really, we can be walking, standing, lying down, sitting. Whatever position makes you most comfortable. And closing your eyes if you choose to close your eyes. If not, having a soft downward gaze. And allowing your body to fully be present. Allowing any stress or tension that you can release to be released in this moment. To allow yourself to be fully present. Allowing whatever surface you're on to fully support you. Allowing yourself to be fully supported by the surface you're on. And noticing if there's any places in your body where you feel like you're still holding. And seeing if you can relax those areas as well. And using this practice and cultivating joy with the combination of our breath. As we have in the past, bringing our awareness to our breath. As we're breathing in and out, noticing the sensation of the breath in the body where we feel it the most. Paying attention to that sensation as we breathe. If it's the air flowing through our nostrils, or the rising and falling of our chest, or our belly, or the whole body. Wherever we notice the sensation of the breath the most, expanding and contracting. And if we don't notice the breath as a sensation, maybe mentally counting your breath, or noticing when you take an inhale and say in, and when you exhale and say out. So it would be in, out, in, out. Whatever it is that you can use to pay attention to your breath. Bringing in the knowing of breathing. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know I am breathing out. Breathing in, I am aware of my body. Breathing out, I am aware of my body in the posture it is in. If you choose to move your hand or your leg, breathing in, I know I am moving my hand or arm. Breathing out, I am resting my arm. Breathing in, recognizing I am sitting here. Breathing out, I know I am breathing out. And now bringing in the cultivation of joy and bringing to mind anything that you know that you have the capacity of doing. If your eyes can see, breathing in, I know my eyes can see. Breathing out, I feel joy. If you have ears that can listen and hear sounds, breathing in, I have ears that can hear sound and listen. Breathing out, I feel joy. If you have a tongue that can taste, breathing in, I have a tongue that can taste. Breathing out, I feel joy. If you have a nose or mouth that can breathe, breathing in, I can breathe. Breathing out, I feel joy. If you have a heart that is beating, breathing in, I have a heart that is breathing. Breathing out, I feel joy. If you have lungs that can help you breathe, breathing in, I have lungs that can help me breathe. Breathing out, I feel joy. If you have a stomach that can digest food, breathing in, I have a stomach. Breathing out, I feel joy. If you have hands that can touch or feel, breathing in, I have hands that can touch and feel. Breathing out, I feel joy. And as you breathe in, coming up with anything that you feel gives you a condition of happiness. And as you breathe out, I feel joy. Whatever it is that is authentic to you, brings you happiness. Breathing it in and breathing it out, feeling joy. And continuing with this practice as best you can. And just noticing where your mind is now. Breathing in. I know I am breathing in. Breathing out. I know I am breathing out. Breathing in. I know I am sitting here. Breathing out. I feel my whole body. Breathing in. I have eyes that can see. Breathing out. I feel joy. Breathing in. Whatever brings you happiness. Breathing out. I feel joy. Breathing in. I know I am breathing. Breathing out. I feel joy. And as we bring this meditation to a close today, simply noticing what are the things that came up for you, unique to you, and how you were able to use your breath to help cultivate joy. And now taking 2 or 3 deep breaths, feeling your whole body breathe, knowing you are breathing, opening your eyes if your eyes were closed, reorienting yourself to your room and surroundings, feeling your feet on the floor, your hands in your lap, and just taking a moment to reflect on your experience today.